she slays with those double braids. She is slayed because of those double braids. The original voice silenced from those double braids. They can be bought and sold, those double braids. In fact, there is a sale at the Bay for those double braids. Look for the HBC Original Canoe for your half-off Canadian branded series of snowshoes. Erase the creators of those goods. Their origin and history have no need to be understood. And use them for your favorite winter activities, like lightly frolicking over her forgotten snow-covered body. It's buy one, get one misrepresentations of her story. Just look for the nearest store occupying our territories. Check the back of your status card for the special pin to activate the coupon that includes free judgment to go along with the perceived sin that what she got, she had coming, and if she goes missing, have her family bring in the newspaper clipping. Show it at the register for their discounted black suits, dresses, and other dark labels. It's a quality purchase that can be worn over and over again as a funeral staple. Given the current societal climate, they'll get plenty of wear out of this product. Like last year's fashion, it's so easy to forget her. Just toss her remains in the aptly named Red River. And the vitriol comes free with purchase. If she had some form of mental illness, it's a points card full of expert witness that would be remiss if he didn't remind us that she was at risk because she happened to choose to be in the addictions business. And you'll find the public apathy on the shelf next to the Sacred Music Festival headdresses. For every 10 biased news story, you'll get a free personal allegory of a guy who knows a guy who dated a native girl once because he doesn't see color and is well-read, who went to his powwow once and deserves a gold star because he totally listens to A Tribe Called Red. I'd say their names, but there are far too many. We are the forgotten Canadian penny, our coppery skin removed from circulation over time because it isn't as valued as the lighter dime. It's 10 for 1, what a deal. Just like our land, we come at a steal. Her body's a commodity, bought and sold as prepackaged native spirituality. Sorry, we don't sell an empowered indigenous matriarchy, but we do carry exotified Indians included with batteries. Her life's receipt is marked final sale. There are no refunds on colonization retail. It's a Black Friday special with tax exemption. It's our culture turned boho style consumption. Keep beating those drums for social redemption. And maybe, just maybe, we'll get positive media attention. APTN coverage of a sunrise ceremony on a red morning because the red are mourning. The double braids found 90% off in the bargain box, but we don't know where they came from because the tags were ripped off. When I became poet laureate in 2016 in Halifax, and there were 2 big anniversary events that were happening within my tenureship. The first being the 100th anniversary of the Halifax explosion, and the second being Canada 150. And so with that, part of my tenureship was to write and perform a poem for Canada 150, and I asked them, when they were talking about this in the interview process, I said, "Are you sure? Do you really want me to write that poem?" And so this is a poem that I wrote where I tricked 3,000 drunk patriots into cheering for a poem critical of Canada. Are you a good Canadian? Do you take great pride in the country we live in? Do you explore the oceans, the prairies, and the mountains? Do you brag about your healthcare to all your foreign friends? Change your cover photo to maple leaves and pride flags, inclusively boasting? High-five your diverse social group while Molson Canadian toasting? Do you give standing ovations to new Canadians at their swearing in? Do you clasp hands with the Indigenous women and men, empathize with the struggles we experienced and are currently in? Do you lend a hand to those you don't understand? And you identify with more than double-doubles in hockey stadiums, and you would never use words like squaw, redskin, or Indian, of course not because you, my friends, are good Canadians. This is a country that I want to be able to believe in. It's land that's been in my family for 1,000 generations. And you support us because you know that we are equal citizens, that we should remain kind in our united fight against a biased system. You listen to those who are different than you. You are always willing to walk a mile in another person's shoes. You are grateful that we are just the red and white, excluding the blue. You've taken your history lessons as only one form of the truth because you recognize and acknowledge that 150 years for some of us is still relatively new. Of course, because that's what good Canadians do. You understand why some of us don't celebrate, so you won't get mad. See, they cut out a maple leaf and laid the white square over red territory. They told us it wouldn't be so bad. Then they raised our stolen lands to be flown as the Canadian flag. So you respect that their difference of opinion doesn't give you the right to make me a comment section punching bag. After all, you celebrate diversity as an enduring Canadian trait and not a passing fad. You will protect at any cost those who worship at your neighborhood mosque because the safety you have today, so many of them have lost. Your desire to reconcile is consistently renewed. You believe Canada is more than a history of old white dudes, and you know that a person's ethnicity amounts to more than just food because that's what good Canadians do. You are honored by our history of keeping the peace. You love our environment and know that resource extraction cannot be a renewable lease. You understand that some of us are afraid of police, so you offer to decode for those who don't understand the legalese. And you know that this country has room for millions more refugees. You love that we have so much freedom of speech, but that doesn't mean what you say is consequence-free. After all, we own what we speak because we're Canadian, please. You know we're not perfect and own our mistakes. We pledge to do better because we know what's at stake. So we will be good allies and not insufferable flakes. The marginalized is not for the privilege to dictate. As a Native woman, my thoughts you appreciate. My missing sisters cause you much heartache. The Canada of tomorrow will be better than the Canada is now because it's not about free concerts and being one in the crowd. It's about applauding the fact that I am Mi'kmaq and proud. You will leave here tonight and you will be better. You will go Google the names Colton Boushie, Tina Fontaine, Loretta Saunders, and Barbara Kentner, and you will realize what it means to be called a settler. You will be kind, respectful, compassionate through and through to all of those who are different than you because that is what good Canadians do. This is one of my fun poems. They're not all so intense. Some of them can be fun. Hi. Hi. My name is North America. I'm a few billion years old, but who's counting? We've all had some shitty relationships. Am I right? I'm pretty independent. I had great friends who were dependent on what I had to offer. I know I can be a bit rocky in places, and some spaces on me lack any kind of curve, but expectations of perfection are a bit absurd. And I'll admit there are a few salty sides to my personality, but geez, some men like to think that they should get all the credit for your discovery. My first boyfriend was named Chris. Total dick. He would insist on giving nicknames to my friends. He kept calling them Indians, and even though they insisted they had different names, this asshole said they all looked the same. He was one of those dudes with too much pride, couldn't abide by any advice, with the worst sense of direction. When my friends politely tried to correct them, he gave them a bunch of sexually transmitted infections. I can't believe I swiped right for a guy who people still think deserves some kind of attention. But between us girls, he had the most underwhelming erections. So when I dumped Chris, he was pissed, but I couldn't resist this new guy named Giovanni, but went by John. He liked my wilder side, didn't care if I mowed the lawn. Wink. But But by dawn, I could see he played me. Landed in my friend's neighborhood, Mi'kma'ki, established a fishing industry, then left to go back out to sea. He was one of those guys that when you had a party, he'd invite all his friends, peace out, and now I have a new roommate named England. He keeps mooching off my resources, saying he's gonna pay rent, but goddamn, it's been forever and I haven't seen a single red cent. I was tired of these Anglos and Italians. All they did was bitch and complain. So I was alone for a few years until I met this total dreamboat Champlain. Now, I have a lot of personal pain from guys I've let in before. Let's be honest, less let in and more broke down my door. So I got to see how this guy treated my friends. It was refreshing to see a man do right and try to make amends. Wait, what? Not all of them? Damn it, Sam. Stop instigating fights and picking sides. I know I implied you weren't a bad guy, that you and my friends were equal, but when you murder the neighbors, I think it's time we start to see other people. I've realized that I don't need a man to take care of me. I've been left needing some serious therapy. My veins are shot, all my fish have been caught, my friends hardly come around. They've been evicted from their grounds and stick to their own part of town by some bitch who said they had to by order of the crown. Now I'm left with scars on my face and oily blemishes that continue to grow while some fuckboy and Cheetos say they now run me, but from what I can see, it's nothing but a peacock show. I was so beautiful in my youth. I might have been a bit less fancy, but I knew I was aging gracefully. Maybe for my next partner, I'll go on those new dating sites, put together a good profile, only selfies in the best light. Let me search Google for the top results where I am sure to meet the next true love of my life. Are you fucking kidding me? They're called Plenty of Fish and eHarmony? Yes, I'm fine. I swear I'll stop crying once I've dealt with the irony. What's my time? Where's my time? Oh, excellent. You guys have to deal with 18 more minutes of me. So I wrote this piece. It was commissioned by Dalhousie University. They opened up a legacy space, a legacy room on campus in the library, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to write a poem for this legacy space. And then, much like every flaky millennial artist, I was hit with inspiration. And so here we go. Oh, let me just... See, look, millennials using technology, it's not going as well. Sorry about that, guys. All right. Introduction. The following stories deal with mature subject matter that can be disturbing. It's a story about kids whose legacy is deserving of something better than the vetted letter sent home. Lies in cursive promising they weren't so alone. This story is raw. It only includes what we saw, but don't worry, there's hope. Just scroll down to the footnotes. Chapter 1, the boats. Let's fast forward through this part. A bunch of men thought they could get a new start. They came to Turtle Island with great intentions to make names for themselves, never stopping to question why we died from all their infections. Chapters 2 through 6, more and more of the same old shit. They thought they were better than us and we had no power to say enough is enough. Chapter 7, all Indians must go to heaven. Here we're really going to take some time, really delve into the divine, the intentions of those who took our children, the ones who said everything about them was forbidden. It is in this chapter we will spill some serious ink, because it is here we need to shift how you think, grown men. The future faces of our money felt like they had some problems. They devised a national plan targeting children to solve them. Chapter 8, an exercise in faith. At this point, Canada is all in. We're not trying to trash anyone's religion, but the country chose to disregard our spirituality. The Crown's rules, beliefs, and disdain was our new reality. Pick a denomination. Just be sure you pick the correct one. Chapter 9. So many lost lives. The kids that went in were erased by a system. They lost the spirit under their skin. Many disappeared, their absence met with tears as police or nuns or nobody at all confirmed parental fears. Footnote 1 for scope, Cheney Wenjack's last hope, a boy ran away. Was given matches instead of a place to stay, found unmoving and cold. He never got the chance to grow old. Chapter 10, we pick up our pens. Footnote 2, storytelling is something we do, but we decided that your style would be the best way to get through to you. Resume chapter. We begin with unending resilience and laughter. Survivors dictate their stories to those willing to listen, their voices an additional gift to all they've already given. The leader apologizes, our reserve finalizes. Chapter 11. A fallen rock star becomes our secret weapon, cherished by the masses for his skilled verses, dedicated his last breath to our purpose. Footnote 3, he refused to let the world forget Cheney, though not everyone agrees with your legacy. I must say, would Lawland please rest peacefully. Chapter 12, we will not be shelved. Determined to be heard, we push back with protest, ceremony, love, and poetic verse. This part is new, settlers didn't rehearse. We helped them along, showing them baby steps first. Footnote 4. We will show them patience, give them an opportunity to do more, but make no mistake, we will never go back to the way you treated us before. Epilogue. This section is currently being written. It comes at your end, but for us, it marks a new beginning. Analog. I'm performing next week at the Nova Scotia Arts Awards Gala, and this is the poem I'll be doing there. And I won an award. I'm very excited. It got announced publicly like 2 days ago. I was meeting with the artistic director before I had won, and she knew that I had won, but I hadn't found out yet. And I have a friend of mine, Ursula Johnson, who won the Sobeys Artistic Award, which is this massive award. It's $50,000 for the artwork that she does. She's Miagama as well. And I was sitting there talking about my idea for my performance at the gala, and I go, Ursula's so great. I really hope Ursula wins. And I was so excited. And then I go home and there's an envelope in the mailbox. And it said that I had won. And I was so very excited. And I ran home, I told to my husband. And he laughs. He's like, you just came across as so genuine. They're going to love you forever. So this piece is about education. It's a metaphor. It's called Canoe. I don't know how to build a canoe. Whether it be birch bark, plastic, or fiberglass, it was never knowledge that got passed down to me. I believed it was a problem with my mentality, perhaps my mixed blood finding equality because I have been unable to forgive my ignorance, even though these skills are not a part of my generational inheritance, that my fallacy was rooted in my fingertips. Nails that were chewed down to the quick, that were too tired and sore to get a good grip. They couldn't pull the birch just right. The bark would tear under their inexperienced might. Perhaps my eyes would spy trees that were too thin, filling in the gaps left by those taken too soon by a greedy whim. Maybe it was my misunderstanding of the seasons that led me to this cultural treason. Maybe I picked too early or too late. The bark keeps splitting, sealing my fate. I cannot build this canoe. Nobody has shown me what to do. But there was still the expectation that I should float, that my blood memory would come with a manual for this boat soaked in a culture dispossessed, and I have been steadily told what they've given me was given to the rest. Look, they can sail in all manners of ships, but they've come from family who remember how to navigate their skiffs. They were given schools with direction in their language. I never had that advantage. Please, my jaw is weak from weeping. The spruce gum is too hard and I'm still teething. I don't know how to build a canoe. Tell me, what am I supposed to do? The water level is rising and my life is worth more than simply surviving. The tools that you've given to me are foreign. They don't make any sense. And my refusal to use them leaves you incensed and frustrated. I'm told that you care, but I feel placated. My brothers can't help because they're incarcerated, and my sisters have all but evaporated. I don't ask questions about these tools. I'm told I'm so lucky to even be in this school, so they end up covered in dust. Those who come after me, just let them rust. And I'm sent to the people who look like me, accepting a paycheck so they can eat with sore throats from trying to speak office walls, let their dreams atrophy. I don't want their sailboat or his dory. I don't want a ship full of sails and tales of glory. Don't tell me it's newer and sleek. I don't care if you offer me a whole fleet. I want a canoe that matches my heart. One that is shaped with my grandfather's bark, where the sinew was pulled from my father's skin, and I weave it through while I remember for him. I'll use it to paddle through my pain, pulling bits of my family that I'm trying to save. But when I speak up, ask for help, I'm told, behave. Teach me how to make this canoe, how to stitch lines that make sense to my spirit. Don't offer me yachts and rafts. Tell me it's fine because they're all watercrafts. We all need to learn to float, but don't force me to learn on your boat. Teach me to build a canoe, and I'll happily navigate this water with you. Now for a drastically different change of pace, because I'm uncomfortable with intimacy, so jokes around my heart. This poem is called, and I feel like it's quite pertinent, as I was told at dinner, to Ontario's current situation. It's called Shitty Sex Ed. Men ejaculate. I learned about this fact in 7th grade sex education. I learned this because it's how women get pregnant. The penis magically becomes erect. And with enough unspecified stimulation, the semen travels from where it was stored in the testicles through the vas deferens and urethra to be unceremoniously deposited into the vaginal canal. At 13 years old, I learned the words vas deferens. At 18 years old, I learned the vastly different places semen could also be deposited. Did you know that it can be put in so many other places? Tits and faces, stomachs and backs, linoleum floors, Walmart bed sheets, all over your ass. All of which would prevent pregnancy. Now, I'm not suggesting that teen sex ed should focus entirely on safe sexting, alternative jacks, and fake splooge, but it's important to note that going down, eating out, blowjobs, anal, finger banging, second base, third base, home runs, and texting nudes are all forms of sex. But my 7th grade sex education I came to learn did not teach me about sex, but rather heterosexual procreation, joyless sex, lacking in imagination. It did not touch on masturbation, but it made certain that I believed female pleasure was a source of shame. How dare I want to be an equal player of the game? My sex ed was taught as though it was written by Betsy DeVos. Men get to have orgasms as a natural part of population growth, while women are the receivers of awkward teenage spasms that get an A for effort at the very most. My early sexual experiences could be summed up with teenage boy masturbates with my vagina. And the glowing face of triumph when he finally found the right spot, kind of. I would have asked for Mr. advice from my older sis, but she was useless given the fact that being gay had yet to make it onto the curriculum's reading list. By the 8th grade, I could label the male anatomy with ease. It was a breeze. I knew the parts of his junk like the back of his corpus spongiosum. But my labia trivia was forsaken by foreskin. My formal education did not teach me about the emotional complexities that accompanied sexual activities. It did not prepare me for the amounts of shower crying that would occur when my 16-year-old boyfriend broke up with me. Note to teenage Rebecca, Tony Braxton cannot unbreak your heart, and no one is going to lay you down in a bed of roses. It was through awkward experience, doubt, and true physical reality of bad lighting, weird sounds, smells, and mid-thrust conversations that I came into my sexuality, and it took owning my womanhood to discover that period sex can be just like finger painting. I lost the expectation that simultaneously every time that we would both be able to come, and figuring out the other person's junk is supposed to be imperfect and a hell of a lot of fun. I stopped giving a shit about the style, length, and shape of my pubic hair because after a while, nobody fucking cares. No. I want to live in a world where information and education on healthy sex is taught for this consent nerd. That kind of stimulation would really hit the spot. 5 minutes? Awesome. I got 2 poems. They'll fit within that 5 minutes. Thank you. So again, now that I've built up enough of a wall of jokes around my heart and vulnerability, let's bring it back out. This one's called One of Those Families. I come from one of those families where the mother's burnout and the father's check out, where child support was too hard, but money was flowing for the tab at the bar. I come from one of those families where we drove a used car and she missed my recitals, where my uncle escaped life with a gun to his vitals. I come from one of those families where my mother was a doctor and I was captain of the track team, but always told I'd have to fight for my dream. I come from one of those families where everything I loved had conditions, where praise was held on to because it was limited edition. I come from one of those families that history split up, that left us wondering if we'd ever be enough. I come from one of those families where we didn't have choices, but were consistently told the world was our oyster. I come from one of those families where my friends couldn't tell or understand when my mom was so white, but I was so tan. I come from one of those families where promises were broken, where hurt and pain were endured, but were never spoken. I come from one of those families where we solved our problems with our fists, but ended every night with a hug and a kiss. I come from one of those families where the kids stepped up when something was off, where our skin got thick and our hearts grew soft. I come from one of those families where meals were always served with regret once a week on my grandfather's china set. I come from one of those families where we all went to university, where we all got degrees but had to be miserable to be seen. I come from one of those families where we had to be better. I come from one of those families that understood never. I come from one of those families that looked good from far away, but where sons and daughters cried for their father to stay, where we didn't realize he kept history at bay. I come from one of those families where we don't talk much, where we never really learned affection and touch. I come from one of those families that slowly broke open, where we dug out holes to plant our hopes in. I come from one of those families where we inherited burdens that made our backs strong, where we hold on to baggage so we don't pass it along. I come from one of those families where we were looked on with pity, where you'd hang out with us, then leave feeling guilty. I come from one of those families where we were extended and vast, where we tried so hard not to repeat the past. I come from one of those families that look at us and tisk because they don't know how much we have risked. I come from one of those families that were multicolored. I come from one of those families that always gave shelter. I come from one of those families that were like no other. I come from one of those families that were raised by the mothers. I come from one of those families with too many kids that just want to live. I come from one of those families. Last but not least, this was the first poem that I ever wrote where I was like, this is a good poem. My name is Swift Fox, proud member of the Mi'kmaq Nation of Mi'kma'ki, the Wabanaki people of the dawn, with a legacy 12,000 years long, and I am honored. I am honored with overpriced beer and shitty hot dogs, by juiced up ball players and abusive running backs, by packs of fans packed into stands doing the tomahawk chop. In 2013, a Philadelphia Eagles fan was photographed. Impaled on his staff, crass and crude, was the mocked-up head of an indigenous man, and I was honored. In his grasp, a perfect pictorial of postmodern cultural appropriation and genocide, the public perception made perfectly clear the head of a dead Indian in one hand and in the other, a beer. Daughter of a survivor and keeper of my family's culture, I listen to my elders, I know my teachings, my beliefs, I stand tall against the culture thieves, yet time and time again I am told our leadership is not being disrespected by the KC Chiefs because I am honored. We are caricatures, mascots to amuse you like the realest Indian on the block, Chief Wahoo, ancient mythical creatures entombed in lieu of respect. Ancient mythical creatures entombed in lieu of respect, our confidence wrecked by bisected public scrutiny between judgment of too much sensitivity and contempt for perceived easy corruptibility, and so I am honored. And I'm saving my favorite for last. The epitome of my righteous indigenous wrath, the Washington professional football team, whose name is the IV morphine for the politically correct, beaten and battered, ignorant majority. A team name that is such an obvious racial slur, a team name that you'll have to concur is literally colorblind. Because when it's all done and said, I'm really more brown than I have ever been red. A team name that alienates, isolates, racially perpetuates our inferior status. A team name whose trademark no longer has a basis because even American copyright officers know that it's racist. A team name that will never pass my lips or cross my cutting tongue unless it's to cut its supporters down by several rungs, because I am honored. I am honored by the eagle feather given to me by my father for my master's degree. I am honored by the hysterical laughter of my nephew sitting on my knee. I am honored by my father's 15 years of sobriety for a national inquiry and the right to marry a non-native man without the world questioning my indigeneity, but I am just one person. So, take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. I want my cultural pride back, but the world won't cut me some slack, and it's rigged for the home team. Somehow we're always to blame, because it's privilege that makes all the rules in the honor game. Thank you.